What's up? Welcome back. I'm John Stark from backmovieguycom, and it's spooky season. And we're going to get lost with the Lost Boys. This movie came out in 1987. It's directed by Joel Schumacher, which kind of is interesting considering reflective how we are on Schumacher's direction and career, but yet Lost Boys has such a huge fan following behind it. So yeah, Joel Schumacher is responsible for the direction. It has one hell of a cast, especially for the 80s. Like, this is like a dripping with 80s cast. So we've got Jason Patric and Corey Haim, who Haim, rest in peace, who are brothers in this movie, and they moved to this town in California, Santa Clara. It's really close to Santa Clarita, which is what kept driving me insane. Dianne Wiest is the mom. Along the way, we're going to pick up some other characters. They moved there to live with the grandpa, who I wish was like a stronger casting choice, like just some really cool person that I immediately recognized and could remember, but he's fine. He's there, whatever. I'm sure he did some stuff in his day, and I'm just being an asshole. Edward Herrmann plays the guy that Dianne Wiest kind of starts dating. Also, rest in peace. We've got the Lost Boys, some of which include Kiefer Sutherland, of course, in this iconic role. I remember from my sighted days just seeing shots of him ever before seeing the Lost Boys, and it was just like the most iconic look of the period was like Kiefer Sutherland. Felt like he was defining like some sort of specific look. Patrick's gonna, fall in love with this girl played by Jamie Gertz, who's also part of the Lost Boys. She goes on to become a billionaire, and she marries she's super wealthy now. She's had such an interesting trajectory for her career. Of course, probably most well known for Twister, but I don't know where else you would know Jamie Gertz from. But yeah, she's stupid rich now. She owns like a basketball team. Anyway, fun fact, like whole video should be done about her. I'm sure there are. We've got Alex Winter is here. And who else? Corey Feldman plays. There are these two. I didn't recognize the other kid, but there are two kids that play Edgar and Alan, which is the most obvious names I knew. But they play the friends that Sam has in the movie. So yeah, it's a vampire movie, and they've tried to adapt this movie into a TV series before, at least once that I know of. It was a failed CW pilot that didn't move forward, along with like the Powerpuff Girls. I mean, if like the CW sounded like they had some really cool pilots going on that I kind of wish I had been able to see and check out, but this is one of them where the Lost Boys didn't make it to series. I still feel like there's potential here. Having seen this, I'm like, I could see this. I could see this being... There's something about also, I feel less offended when a movie moves to series instead of to like a remake or a requel or a sequel or whatever, I'm like later on. I'm like less offended by the series adaptation of it because it allows you to stay longer with the characters and do things and go places that the movie never did. For example, I know we've put Joss Whedon in cancellation jail, but his TV show of Buffy the Vampire Slayer is way better than the movie, like leagues better than the movie, and also led to a spinoff of Angel. So and now like the reboot of Buffy. So when we can get stuff like that, I think that's really inspired. Also, some of the musicals too that we get, like stage musicals, which now there's a stage musical of the Lost Boys, in case you're wondering why did he do the Lost Boys. It's not an anniversary year. Well, it is also being re-released theatrically in some places for like Halloween time, since we have to fill our theaters now. The Lost Boys might be showing near you for Halloween season. And it's worth, it's worth talking about. It's just worth. So we've got the family that moves to a new town, and sort of lots of references about like, you know, youth and just sort of the how we did things as kids, and kids never die, and that kind of misspent youth, and the difference also between the brothers, right? Sam is like a comic book nerd. He's more of a he's less of a risk taker, whereas his brother, Jason Patric's character, is more of like a risk taker, wants to be seen as popular, and you know, is not afraid of his own shadow. I mean, this film would have been wholly different if they had played Patric as like a nerd, you know, who then gets transformed, because we've seen those movies too, right, where you're not already sort of one of those, and then you get bit and suddenly you're the cool guy who wears leather jackets. You know, the nerd is suddenly like big, strong, and one of the cool kids. So they do that too. But no, Patric is already sort of like leaning into it, which is why I think the Lost Boys try to turn him instead of using him as food. Because we see all these like, you know, missing person posters throughout town. And obviously these vampires have been doing a lot of work. And the fact that Sam's friends, you know, he finds these two boys, Corey Feldman and the other kid, Edgar and Alan, and they call themselves vampire hunters because they know something's afoot. There's enough here, but it doesn't play like a traditional vampire movie. It plays like a coming of age movie. It plays like, you know, like a teenage wasteland, MTV generation, 80s. It's not the most violent movie that you would find. It sort of blends genres together. Like it blends everything from coming of age to comedy to horror to, you know, even a little bit of camp. There's some stuff with Grandpa, especially like at the end. You know, I thought his final line in the movie is pretty great, considering you're like, wait, what? We just okay. So, and it definitely follows like a lot of the tropes. You know, like there was a point I was like, well, I'm in a vampire movie, and it's like one of those things that where like as a film lover, it's like if you know you're in a vampire movie, you just don't do certain things. And so there's a moment where somebody's standing at a door, right, and they're waiting because they haven't been invited in, and it's really awkward because they're standing there and they can't come in unless they've been invited. And then finally they get invited, and I'm like, you're in a vampire movie. Why are you inviting people in? So, and it's made more obvious. Like, if you ever had any questions about that character, the fact that he has to ask, he's like, well, you're the man of the house. So I'm not coming in unless I'm invited. I'm like, of course you're not, but that's not the reason. So, I think the sort of the coolest twist of all of it is the why of it, like why all of this is happening. And it's not actually because the Lost Boys wanted to expand their family and have more boys in the Lost Boys. It's all of this is because of Dianne Wiest. It's all of this is done because Edward Herrmann's character wants Dianne Wiest to, you know, choose to turn and marry him and become the mother to the Lost Boys. So it's fun. It's a fun. It's somewhat whimsical. It feels. It's hard to say because it doesn't feel like it's directed by Joel Schumacher, but then there are things that you can see that are kind of directed by Schumacher, the guy that made sure we had nipples in the bat suit. You know, there's sort of a little bit of like there's no sex here, but it feels like that there's like a sexual heat for some reason that moves through this movie. Like especially with Kiefer Sutherland's character, like this unspoken thing that he just kind of like walks around all the time, like he wants everybody, but he can't because it's really that he wants to eat everybody, but he walks around with like this different sort of vibe to him, like he's just staring you down, ready to jump your bones, but it's for a different reason. But he plays it like it's Anyway, and that he has this like iconic mullet look. It's such a great look. So yeah, I like The Lost Boys, and it's worth talking about. And if you can get it with audio description, great. I don't know if any of these midnight screenings are running it with audio description, but I am intrigued that there's now a musical. I literally found out about that like a couple days ago, where somebody was like, "Did you know there's a Lost Boys?" I was like, "What? Why?" Stop making musicals out of everything. But because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You know, not everything naturally adapts into a musical. So like I didn't, when I heard that, I wasn't like, oh yeah, Lost Boys. That I've been waiting for that my whole life. The Lost Boys musical. Like, are we gonna get a Nightmare on Elm Street musical? You know, like Freddy Krueger singing these big ballads as he haunts people. I mean, there's an American Psycho musical, so stranger things have happened. Um, but uh, if in lieu of you having tickets to a Broadway show this October, check out The Lost Boys, which I think still would make for a solid adaptation. And if they did adapt it, I think, you know, if you can get the retro feel of it, it's hard to pull off. I would argue that the Grease TV show that they tried to do did not pull it off very well because it felt very retro, but also I don't think that show worked when you think about adapting it from film to film to television. So I don't know what the best answer is about Lost Boys and whether or not to keep it in the 80s and keep it with the vibe, or to try to update it and modernize it to today. But the moment you start adding in like cell phones and stuff like that, and Google and the internet, it kind of changes the way that people are able to communicate and look up things and research, and then you take photos of and cameras. So if you know you can do something interesting with it, then by all means. But just updating it simply because you can't figure out how to make 80s work, if the reverse can't happen, then suddenly you're writing out all of the interesting parts of the series of what made The Lost Boys. Maybe The Lost Boys only works as an 80s product. That's the whole thing, you know, with all of its MTV references. Maybe it always has to stay in that decade. So, but I think it's a cool slice of nostalgia. It's not, I didn't see this movie right away, later, and I haven't seen this movie a bunch of times. It's not a Desert Island movie for me, but it is cool to watch it and to realize that all these people were involved and Joel Schumacher directed it and people are still obsessed with it. So I'm gonna give The Lost Boys 7.7 out of 10. I like the movie. I don't have quite the nostalgia to it and the attachment to it, but I do think it's good for what it is, and I think it's iconic for its time period, all of the things. And the worst thing that you could throw at it would be to say it's cheesy, and I would argue it's supposed to be. I don't think it's shying away from that at all. I think it definitely embraces some of that camp and cheesiness as part of its plot. There isn't really, it's hard to look at this movie and say that it's playing it straight. And that's the thing. I think this film very much knows what it is and knows, it's almost like it could see how it stands the test of time 30 years from now is by embracing the camp and comedy and not playing it straight, so that it gets lost to the sands of time as being something that just comes across as being poorly made. So, plus the bevy of people involved in this, just an amazing amount of talent, and a couple of them have already passed. So check it out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the other side.